Question: do you believe that there is corruption within the system, or do you believe that the system has no corruption?
I believe the system has got lots of corruption in it.
Yeah.
If you're following me, it's usually because you're going through some sort of family court here in the state of Texas. There's many that follow me across the nation, and I kind of want to talk about the Texas family court system and what they do to parents and what I have found through my research, through my advocacy, and some of the stuff that I have seen going to testify on behalf of some of these bills that become laws in the legislature. And I just want to kind of give you my opinion on what I'm seeing in 2025. So if that's something you're interested in, please continue to watch this video and get in where you fit in. For those that don't know me, my name is George Saldana. I've been in a Texas family court for almost 9 years. I've seen some things, I've done some things, and I want to tell you about them. Just some of the things that I've been able to observe, some of the things that I've advocated for and against. And I want to tell you the progress that we have made, but I also want to tell you how we can combat this. I think we're bringing some old arguments. We're letting attorneys get away with things that they shouldn't. And so I think we need to flip the script and kind of do things a different way. So if you're interested in that, keep watching. In the last 8 or 9 years, I've seen things and I've been treated horribly in Texas family courts. And I can tell you that it's not just limited to one judge or two judges or a certain county or a certain region of the state of Texas. This is like statewide. And when we go over some of the things that we're going to go over in this video today, you're going to understand how big of an issue that we have on our hands. And the only way to combat this is to probably do something different instead of doing the status quo, hiring your attorney, going after your ex, fighting over the kids. I think we need to change the trajectory of our arguments, and we need to do it the 2025 way. So we know some of the patterns of abuse that we have seen in family court. We've seen perjury, we've seen aggravated perjury, the weaponization of protective orders, closing of courts, star chamber judicial proceedings. We've seen judges not know the First Amendment. We've seen judges not follow the law, kind of legislate from the bench, and the list goes on. Ex parte communication happens. Nobody is really holding anybody accountable. And we have judicial canons and the disciplinary rules of professional conduct that say that when a lawyer sees another lawyer, or a lawyer sees a judge, or a judge sees a lawyer, or a judge sees another judge violating the disciplinary rules of professional conduct or the judicial canons, they shall report them to the state grievance council. And of course, if you hire an attorney, they're not going to turn in the judge for ex parte communication. They're not going to turn in opposing counsel for unethical filings or filings aimed to harass. Usually they don't want to stir the pot. When my kids are being involved in family court, okay, I'm going to stir the pot because I deserve a fair trial, a fair hearing under the Due Process Clause. You can find that in your 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. A lot of the things that I tell people to do is try to educate yourself. We have all of these resources available in 2025. In 1980, we didn't have iPhones. We couldn't pull it up. We didn't have Google. We didn't have AI. We didn't have the resources necessary to combat these unethical legal practices. And so I tell parents all the time, if you want to represent yourself, be a litigant in family court because you can't afford an attorney, you need to know the rules of the game. A lot of parents go into family court and they just want to fight their ex. All they want to do is just make it seem like their life is so much better than their ex. And I'm telling you, I believe that's the wrong approach. If you are truly trying to have a relationship with your child, you're going to need to protect your rights. And it sounds easy. It sounds easy. I know what my rights are. They're parental rights. but there's more to it. And a lot of parents, believe it or not, don't know what their rights are. And believe it or not, some of these judges don't know what the Constitution says. So we're constantly educating the legal profession. And whether the legal profession is perverting its own profession and then blaming it on the litigants, it doesn't matter. Your objective is to get from point A to point B, to get from having no possession and access to having a parent and child relationship. So early on, I had an attorney. I retained her, paid her cash money up front, simple possession and access, filing because I wasn't seeing my child. Law enforcement wouldn't take any criminal complaints for interference with child custody. And that's kind of where my advocacy started. I just asked, why? If it's the law, why are you not upholding the law? And that is where it took me down all these rabbit holes. And that's how I became an advocate for family court reform, is because these courts are giving out orders and these parents are anticipating their possession and access time with their children. And for some ungodly reason, we hold a custodial parent on this high pedestal when we have basically the same rights and duties as they do. But the point is that these judges know that. They know you're going to keep coming back for more. You're going to keep paying an attorney. And I can't tell you how many times I get parents wanting to set up GoFundMe accounts so that they can hire another attorney just to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result. It's insanity. And we know that. And I'm sure I'm not telling you something you don't know already. I'm sure a lot of y'all know these practices, and some of y'all are just kind of frustrated. Things are never going to change. I've been doing this for 10 years and I haven't seen change. And a lot of people are just torn about it. And I get it. I've lost years with my child because of the family court system. And this is why I'm telling you, we need to change the way we do things in family court. We need to start, if you have to hire an attorney, we need to start talking to these attorneys and demanding they're going to fight for our constitutional right to the parent and child relationship. A lot of the times, y'all just give money to attorneys. They ride your emotional crazy train in family court. They just litigate back and forth like a ping pong ball about the merits of your case and why you should have custody and not your ex. But if we flip it, what allows them to violate me? That's a question we should all be asking. At what point does the judiciary here in the state of Texas have the ability to infringe on my parental rights, my fundamental rights? And that's what I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this argument on this Zoom. A lot of people seem to get hung up on what legalese is and believe they need to go to law school to understand legalese. And I'm here to tell you that the people that write the laws, the legislature, legislative intent is how the law is written. So if you can read and write and comprehend in the English language, you're more than qualified to read the law and interpret it. Now, I understand there's some difficult portions in the law that need to be refined or even maybe need to be defined. And so that's why I always tell parents to carry a dictionary with you, especially if you are not an attorney, right? You need to know what every word means. Everything in law is word for word. Let's say it again, word for word. If you don't know the legal definition of that word, you're already behind. So I like to tell parents, do you know the legal definition of a right, a fundamental right, or a duty? Or what does the duty to support mean? What is support? Those are all questions you should be asking yourself. Instead of just paying $6,000 to an attorney for a retainer, saying I need a pit bull type attorney that's a bulldog in the courtroom, that's what you need to be asking yourself. A lot of attorneys make money just on the fact that you don't understand the legal process. At certain times, you're going to not have money to keep paying this retainer to keep taking you on this crazy train. What can we do to combat this? Okay, so let me just tell you this. We have the internet. We have AI. And again, I'm going to tell you like I tell everyone else, right? AI is a great tool for us to use, but you still need to recheck your work. You need to research and make sure that the case law actually is a case law, actually was cited. So I don't really use AI to help me with case law. I go after landmark case law because landmark case law is already embedded in our constitutional rights. It's embedded in law. There's case law. Um, there's so many benefits to reading the landmark cases before AI. And that's what I'm trying to tell you is that if you look at all these landmark cases, you look at the briefs, you look at the amicus briefs that support some of these parental right briefs, and you read what these justices in the higher Texas courts are saying, that's going to give you the advantage. Now, a lot of these attorneys, and I'll say it again, Houston, Harris County, we have judges that don't know the First Amendment.
I go ahead, so it's my testimony about I remember that.
When you start digging into advocacy and you start listening to other justices, Supreme Court Justice Scalia once said,
then you look at what current law schools do. At Georgetown, it is possible to get a degree without ever taking a required course. If you take a particular course of action, you can get there purely on electives. In most law schools, you can get out without ever having studied the First Amendment. Can you imagine getting a degree which says you are learned in the law in the United States and you've never studied the First Amendment? And can you imagine what kind of a society that's going to produce if the class that is supposed to be the defender of the First Amendment doesn't know anything about it?
I believe that because I have seen that in Harris County, which is Houston, Texas, one of the larger cities in America. And I've witnessed it. I've had others witness it. We have all worked together to expose this problem. So if you have these judges that are not familiar with the First Amendment, they're closing their courtrooms, calling it a confidential courtroom, you can almost bet that they don't know the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, eighth, 10th, 12th, 14th amendments of the U.S. Constitution or the state Constitution. I always tell parents, not only should you read the disciplinary rules of professional conduct or the judicial canons, but you should also revisit the judicial branch, which is Article 5 of the Texas Constitution, and read it. Judges can be removed for incompetence. They can be removed on a grand jury picking up charges for oppression or a criminal complaint just being filed for official oppression. The problem is law enforcement won't allow you to make that police report. And what I'm telling you is that if you go into the roots of the Code of Criminal Procedure and you start digging, you're going to see legislation that's been there since 1965. And it tells you how to write a criminal complaint. And so I've started to write my own criminal complaints, have it notarized, and I followed the Code of Criminal Procedure, and then I would just file it into my court case. Now, that's a whole nother issue, a whole nother topic for another video on another day. But I can tell you right now that it has stirred up a lot of controversy. And that's cool, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're just a sheep hiring attorneys, we're all going to end up broken with broken children. And so now it's time for us to use the resources available to start challenging these judges, especially if they don't know the First Amendment. And that's really, really easy. Everyone knows the First Amendment, or so I thought, but you have legal professionals that don't know the bare fundamentals. And just like I told you with Scalia saying that a lot of these attorneys are going to law school and they're not being taught constitutional law. We've seen it in briefs. We've seen Texas Supreme Court justices say that a lot of these justices are saying that these family courts are getting it wrong a lot. Whether it's stupid incompetence, whether they know or they don't know, it doesn't give them the ability to violate your rights simply because they won an election. A judge doesn't have unbridled discretion, and a lot of people seem to believe that. And when you walk down those words, what is discretion? Judicial discretion doesn't allow a judge to violate the law. If you read the judicial canons, it would say the same thing. A judge shall comply with the law. Now, I know what you're going to tell me. They don't do it. They don't do it. They don't do it. They don't do it. Correct. I understand that. And that's one of the reasons why we have this video, is so I can educate you and tell you where to go and find these little gems in the Texas judicial canons or the disciplinary rules of professional conduct, the Texas Lawyers Creed, and learn the game, learn the rules of the game. Quit just pouring money into attorneys and expecting you to win custody because your ex is unfit. Wait, unfit? Let's talk about unfit. So a lot of things that we have seen in the legislature, some of y'all know that I went to Austin this summer. I've gone the last 4 sessions, and I've tried to participate and advocate for bills that were in Texas parents' interest and against bills that are against Texas parents' interest, if that makes sense. And so seeing these things, how the legislature writes bills and laws and what they expect from the judicial branch, it's clear that the judicial branch just doesn't care. They value their discretion. And that's why I'm telling you, we need to challenge them. Because when you start looking at Supreme Court briefs, you start looking at Supreme Court case law, landmark case law, you're able to put things together and you're able to challenge what already has been challenged and decided by the higher courts. So one of the things that I like to tell people now is go get those landmark case laws. Go look at those briefs, copy paste them, put them into ChatGPT, tell it to write you a brief, a motion, a petition, or whatever. And like I said, the landmark case law is already set. Okay, Troxel and Granville, 20 years ago. Okay, all of that happened years ago. Since then, things have changed. Moving forward 25 years, look at our cell phones, look at car seats, look at airbags, look at everything in society, how it has evolved, except the family court system, still acting like the family court system from 1980 because of those traditional discretionary legal maneuvers that these judges use. They like to intimidate. They don't understand that they're public servants. They don't understand that they're there to serve the people, to ensure that justice is upheld. And all the judges, they're all conservators of the peace. In a lot of these landmark cases that we have seen, Troxel and Granville, CJC, and some of the other cases you don't really know about, okay, they all say the same thing, that there must be a compelling state interest before any judge can limit, restrict, or terminate your parental rights. Limit, restrict is the key word, and a compelling state interest. And when you start looking and you start Googling and you start ChatGPTing, what is a compelling state interest? People have never heard that. And I'll tell you this, in the 8 or 9 years that I've been in family court, not one attorney on my side or their side has ever brought up a compelling state interest, has ever brought up violations of a decorum, has brought up an unfit parent. They have not used those words. They are not using the words that are used in landmark case law. Again, copy and paste. You have that ability. A lot of these attorneys use templates that they have embedded their case law into, and they have Westlaw and they have other resources available to them. Doesn't mean you're not qualified to use them either. You just need to know them so you know how to structure your case and navigate your case moving forward. It's not really that hard. Now, here's the issue. We know judges aren't following the law. We know they're legislating from the bench. We know they are violating the Texas Lawyers Creed, the judicial canons, disciplinary rules of professional conduct. We know they are violating your fundamental rights. Here's what you can do about it. You can keep reporting it. We need to consistently keep reporting judges that fail to uphold the law. We need to keep reporting judges that are not competent in the law. Remember, there is a provision in the Texas Constitution that allows us to remove judges if they are incompetent. Now, a lot of these judges, what we have seen, are not getting paid a lot. So basically what you have is you have a McDonald's drive-through worker handing you a custody order, right? And it seems to make sense. You have Supreme Court justices saying, along with Justice Scalia from the United States Supreme Court, all saying that these judges don't know the bare fundamentals. I've seen it. They're saying it. I agree with it. You're seeing it. And so now, instead of just hiring that attorney, instead of just pouring money out and giving it to an attorney, make sure that attorney knows what unfit is. If he's going to argue a compelling state interest, if he's going to argue parental rights. See, a lot of these attorneys, they want to sidetrack you and say, well, Troxel and Gronville was only for termination cases. And it's not just for termination cases. The Starry case is one of the newer landmark cases. The Starry case happened in Houston, Harris County, Texas. And the appellate courts in the Houston area, they got it wrong. The Supreme Court had to jump in and say, hey guys, y'all were wrong, and so were the lower courts. And so again, it goes back to what I was saying, that Justice Lerman and all these other justices of the Texas Supreme Courts are saying that these judges on the lower courts are consistently getting it wrong. Like, ding, the fries are ready, and you're keeping them in the fryer 3 minutes over than what they should be. And that's what we're seeing. And that's the degradation of family court. It's just degrading. It degrades the parent and child relationship. And we're going to need to change that. They're not going to give it to us. They're not going to give it to you. They're not going to give it to me. They're not going to give it to mom. They're not going to give it to dad. They know there's an issue with fatherlessness in family courts. They know that. And what I tend to believe after reading and seeing some of these things, these courts are giving more men more custody rights. And the reason I believe is because for so long, 94% of the non-custodial parents were of men. And so men are bringing these arguments into family court. And when they're bringing these arguments in family court, what they're doing is they're protecting their rights. They're padding their judicial proceedings court record with fundamental rights and safeguards. And kind of to sum it all up, look, we already know the family courts are getting it wrong. We've seen it in briefs. We've seen Supreme Court justices on both levels, the state and the federal level, all consistently say the same thing, that these lower courts are consistently getting it wrong. And it's going to be through us to educate these courts. It's going to be us that are going to have to educate law enforcement about upholding child custody orders. Them just saying it's a civil matter, I don't want to deal with it, take it back to family court, that is creating a financial hardship for a lot of parents. And I don't think it's fair. I think we need to address that issue in family court, that there is no way for you to effectively enforce your court order if law enforcement won't give you a violation of that court order. You have to remember, in order to hold somebody in contempt, you got to have three things. You got to have a valid court order, you got to have a violation of that court order, and you got to have a willingness to violate. If these cops are not writing the violation of interference with child custody, how can you take that to court? Right? These judges are going to overwhelm you and your attorney with discretion. And so it's important that we start holding our public servants accountable. And I understand it's hard. I understand. I always tell people to record everything. We live in the digital age. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to record. You can't record in courts, George. Yes, you can. There's no penal code in the state of Texas that says you are violating the law if you record. That's just a rule. And I think, again, we need to challenge that rule. We need to tell parents that to make that challenge in open court, citing our First Amendment. If you have some case law, drop it in there. Go look at First Amendment landmark case law, Second Amendment landmark case law, 14th Amendment landmark case law, and start applying that in your motions, in your pleadings, your petitions in the lower courts. It's really not that hard. But again, if you're giving money to an attorney and you're expecting a different result, parents have been treated like shit in family court. A lot of these judges are shallow. A lot of these judges, and I can't say all judges anymore because I do have friends that are judges. I do respect them. I do believe they go in every day and make right decisions, but none of them are family court judges. They're all criminal court or juvenile court judges that I know. And so they understand the people are listening, the people are awake. We have attorneys on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook that are all coming out and saying that these courts are just running rogue. And for us to reel them in, it's going to be an educational piece. So again, guys, what we went over are some of the tactics that they use and some of the ways to kind of defend ourselves. We need to use the law as our shield and our sword. So with that being said, I thank you guys for watching again. If y'all have any more input, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section and I'll try to get back to you. But again, the name of the game is to start challenging now. Start demanding 50-50 shared parenting. Start demanding that you have a fundamental right to support your child without government and intrusion. A compelling state interest needs to be found before they can start to interfere, limit, or restrict your rights, terminate your rights. And supporting your child is your fundamental right. If you want to buy your child shoes at Walmart and pants at Walmart, as long as you're doing that, they can't interfere. And again, we need to challenge the child support system. Everyone talks about it, how bad it is. It's going to be up to us to want to change this. So keep grinding, keep writing your judicial grievances, keep writing your state bar grievances, know the judicial canons and the disciplinary rules of professional conduct, especially the rules that say that when a judge knows that a judge has violated, or a judge knows that a lawyer has violated, a lawyer knows that the lawyer has violated, the lawyer knows the judge has violated these rules, they shall report to those disciplinary councils. So with that being said, guys, I appreciate you. It's all about education. Keep educating, keep sharing the content, keep getting it out there. They hear us. The more parents that we get to keep complaining about the system is what's going to break the system. If we just cry and beg and plead and share memes about parental alienation and do no work at all, you're not going to get much. Right? When you educate others and you tell them where to find the answers, and when you succeed, I succeed. When I succeed, you succeed. So with that being said, guys, follow for more, comment if you have any other questions, and let's keep digging.